listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. This is one of your co hosts, Jacob Bozen.
Hey, this is another one of your co-hosts, Nick Todorov.
And for this week's episode, we're doing something a little bit different. We have one of my good friends, Manfredo, with us, kind of interview me in a way for my story today that he knows very well. We received a question last week that we answered, Nick and I, about some dating troubles that I had. And so we're going to tell that story this week. I'll tell you a little bit about Manfredo. I met him on Grinder. He wanted to go on a date with me and learn more about the podcast, but I told him I was moving to Utah, but he was relentless, I guess you could say. And so we went and we became good friends. And so he knows this story pretty well. Yeah, let's have you introduce yourself, Manfredo.
Oh, hold on 1 second, Jacob. I think you need to give a little bit more information on the timing in which you two have met.
So we met probably 5 or 6 weeks ago, wouldn't you say? What you
Yeah,
think?
but you are sharing just your side of the story. Just wait for mine
Okay,
also because
well,
that's just your side of the story.
okay, we'll get right into it. Tell your side.
So, hello everyone. Happy to be here. But Jacob said that we met on Grinder, and I was like dying to get on a date with him. Kinda, but it was because he was advertising his podcast on Grinder, and I wanted to get to know more about it because the first episode is amazing, and that's how it started. It went more like the Grinder date.
Right.
Well, and what's also important for the listeners to understand, these two have met in the middle of the storyline that Jacob's going to be sharing today. So that's a little bit of important detail to get ahead of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay.
When I met him, he was heartbroken when I met him, so that's important to know. I became kind of like his confidant and that evil friend telling him like, no, don't do this or text him that. That's kind of like my role in the story.
Yeah, exactly. So this story is about a guy named, we'll call him Esteban. We met in May on Hinge, and he wanted to go on a date at the National Mall. So we decided to go to do that. I wasn't super excited because I was kind of deciding if I was leaving DC or not, and I was sitting in a point where I was like, dating is no longer viable here for me. But I went anyway. I expected to be there no longer than an hour. I was there with him for 7 hours because we connected so well. Talking was easy. We connected on a spiritual, emotional level. It was just super easy. Connected with him like I hadn't connected with someone in DC before. And that night, we finished our walk at the National Mall. He wanted to go get ice cream. Well, we got dinner first, and then he wanted to get ice cream, so we spent a total of 7 hours together. Then I had plans, so we left, but he wanted to see me again that same day after my plans, and I shut that down because I thought it was a little too much for me and kind of wanted to be more mysterious, I guess you could say, even though we spent 7 hours. We made
Jacob,
plans.
let me ask you this, but that's the 7 hours went like naturally, or one of you were like pushing to stay longer there? Because for me, like the first date, more than 1 hour, it's probably a lot. And you say that you spent like 7 hours. That's why I'm like thinking like either one of you were like pushing to stay longer, or it was like a natural connection that you both wanted to be there.
Oh, we both wanted to be there for sure. Yeah. Like I said, I was only expecting it to be an hour, but yeah, we just kept going. Like it was very natural. Anyway, so
But do you ever during that time, let me, because for me, like I know the story, but I also wanted to bring this question at this point because for our listeners can be interesting to know this at this point. Like, do you ever worry during that time that spending so much time up front can sometimes go against that purpose that all of us like can bring to our first day, like to build like a strong connection with people? So do you ever worry about that spending so much time can go against that?
I don't. No, I know that you probably do, but I mean, if it's unless somebody's forcing it, I think it's a problem. But if nobody's forcing it, then I think that that's totally fine and honestly a good thing. Yeah.
Well, and
Okay.
also it's kind of awkward to just say, "Hey, this is going really great, but we spent too much time together, so I'm gonna leave."
Right. Yeah. I would just be like, I have plans, which I did. And so that's why we probably would have spent more time, but I had to go. It was actually really that good. More context, this guy, Esteban, is from Colombia. He was a student here getting his master's degree at a university that I might say later if I get angry, you know. So we ended our first day. He wanted to see me again. He wanted me to come over and stay the night with him, but I was like, no, like that's a little much for me. And then we made plans the following week, and we scheduled a date to go. He was going to come over to my apartment after work. I was going to make him dinner, and he was going to stay the night. We did that. Everything was normal, connected super well again. And then the next morning, I took him to the metro so he could go to work, gave me a kiss in the car, and then he got out and he's walking away for about 10 seconds. And then he runs back to my car, gets back in the car, and kisses me again and told me that he would see me that weekend. So, very good connection from the very beginning. It
Hold
kept
on.
going.
Question. So Jacob, when he had spent the night, did you guys have adult relations?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And everything was, great. So he told me when
Wish
I
this
got,
can be like this kind of podcast, Jacob. I wish this can be this kind of podcast where you can have like a video version of that, like for our listeners to see your face, because I have been with Jacob when he is talking about Esteban, and you should see your face. So there's no way that Jacob can hide that level of interest on this individual. So, but Jacob, before you move forward, just for our listeners, describe this guy. How is it? How is him? Like, is he like a nice looking guy? Is like, tell us more because we want to know that part. We are like into the gossip at this
sure.
point.
Okay, yeah. He's very cute. He's my height, which is great because I don't like them really taller than me. He's got curly hair. Yeah, I mean, he's cute. I don't really know who he would look like that I could tell you, but he's yeah, fairly attractive. And I think you agree because you've seen pictures of him.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of just
Yeah,
imagine
we're gonna
that.
talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. So he told me that he would see me that following weekend. Well, anyways, he got busy, and so we didn't, and we had planned a date for that following Monday. And by my third time, fourth time with people, I kind of like to do a game called 31 Questions, which is like a set of questions that you get to really know someone a lot better. Because when I'm dating, I do it with more intention for the long term. And so by the third or fourth date, I kind of want to know for myself if that's something, if this is a person that I want to pursue any further. Because other than if it's not, then I'm wasting my time. So 31 questions is a way to get that in my mind. So he knew that was the plan.
Who recommended that, Jacob? Where you got that information or that idea about the 31 questions?
Um,
Is like something you
I
heard
think
somewhere, or is like a research based information?
I
Because
think I
this
read it in a
leads
book.
me okay, because this leads me to sometimes think about like you are someone who really looks like for like a deep connection with someone. So when we are talking about the 31 questions activity, I think sometimes, especially with someone like Stevan, who um, may not be ready, probably jumping into those deep questions
Well,
too early, maybe
well,
like
that was probably true, but at the time you have to realize that he was the one pressing the gas harder than I was. And so 31 questions in my mind was like, oh, this will be like right up his alley because he was pursuing me harder than I was him. For real.
okay, you were
So,
trying to catch the spin.
yeah, and it's something that I like to do anyways with people if I see like potential in them. And so, yeah, I had planned this whole thing. He knew what it was. He agreed. We had the date planned, whatever. So the day of the date, I messaged him like, "Does this time work for you today?" And he messaged back and he said, "Oh, I'm not really in the mood for a date today." And that kind of threw me off because I was like, well, it's fine to cancel, but the thing that bugged me is he didn't reschedule it. I told him, I said, well, you know that I scheduled like, or I came up with like a really meaningful date and you didn't reschedule. And he slightly apologized, but still did not reschedule with me. And he said, maybe we keep expectations low. So at this point, this is when the vibe starts to shift and turn from he's pressing the gas really hard, he wants to see me twice in one day, and then immediately the next day, and then he wants to see me every day after that. And then once I start to plan this like more serious date to really get it to know each other, he kind of backs away. So there's a lot of
Well,
other.
question, Jacob. At any point at this moment, did you think that he really was ultimately just looking for a hookup? That the reason why he asked to hang out with you later that night, that first time you met, because he knew what he was going to be getting into. And obviously, that's what happened the next time that you guys hung out. Do you think that was his MO?
I don't, just because we met on Hinge, and if he was wanting just that, I don't think we would have spent 7 hours together. Like if he was just wanting to, go back to his place or mine, we would have left the mall really, really like way earlier than we did, and we would have went there. That's my opinion. He's not on Grinder though.
I'm going to
That's the
say
thing.
now something in the name of friendship. I'm going to say something just because we are friends. And I think Jacob at some point got into that role of creating good excuses for um, to somehow shade his behavior or these patterns to don't make it him look that bad. And I think from a perspective when you are interested in someone, also it can happen, but we have to be realistic as adults. We have to be
Oh,
realistic and
I'm
say,
fine with making him look bad. I mean, you know how I feel about it.
yeah, but what I'm saying, like during that time that this situation was ongoing, several times I noticed how you were like, no, he didn't have connection, he got sick, he's busy, and we all been there. But at some point, we have to start like realizing how red are those red flags,
Yeah, yeah,
because if we don't do that, we are going to be like at the end like more guilty than the other person because we were playing blind.
right, yeah. So the next point in the story, the tone completely shifted. So he started pulling back completely. I was getting one response a day, even if that from him. We were texting a lot before this, but then once the date kind of fumbled, it just shifted. It threw me so bad that I uploaded our conversations into ChatGPT, like all of it. I gave it all the context, put all of our text threads in there because I'm like, am I off about this? Like, what I asked it, I said, what do you think about this? Not really giving it any sort of way to be biased at all. And it's like, no, Jacob, he sucks. Like, this is a one-sided thing. And I kept having to upload the conversations. It was really stupid. Later the next week, he finally invited me to go to a cookout at his house that he was going to have with his roommates at his house. And I was super excited, looked forward to that for the whole week. And then the day before Saturday, that when it was going to be, he messaged me and he said, "Hey, so sorry to do this. I'm going to Philadelphia with my friends, so we're not having the cookout." So that was fine, another cancel, but it was a letdown. And then he didn't reschedule with me again. So then I had not seen him by this point in like 2 or 3 weeks since our first time that we were together, or our last time. And so I'm like, oh, we're kind of losing a connection. So I started sending him some voice messages to make it more personal. And he told me, I'm getting I'm packing to go on vacation. I sent him a voice message, like asking him where he was going to go. And then the first round of ghosting came in. So he ghosted me for 3 weeks. And at this point, I was like pissed because, like ghosting is not fun. And during this
Jacob,
time,
one question here. The one question. When I start dating someone, the first things that I try to find out is if this person is emotionally available. Do you think Esteban was emotionally available, or were you expecting to find out later, like through dating, because you saw him twice? How do you know, like, how do you get that idea that he was emotionally available, thinking that because you are always looking for these kind of connections, you are not just casually dating people?
yeah, well, in person, it was very good, like I said. And then once we would just be texting, it was just a completely different world. Like it was almost like I was dealing with two different people. It's really weird.
When
So,
was his
well,
last relationship? Did you have time to ask that? When was
yeah,
his last
so on our
relationship?
first date, I forgot to mention, he said that he had just recently been divorced. I don't know the timeline on that, but he did tell me that he was just divorced. So,
Interesting fact. We were missing that piece of the puzzle, buddy.
right, yeah, so that probably has a major, play in all of this. So then 3 weeks goes by. I'm kind of moving along. I'm away from him. I'm still pissed just because, ghosting is not nice. And then he finally reaches back out. And I'm like, seriously, like, I'm almost done with you. Like, why are you reaching back out? And he says to me, my messages never arrived. Like, I texted you. And I'm like, bullshit. You did not. Like, stop lying. And then he sends me a screenshot of all the messages he tried to send me that didn't go through. Well, by this point, I had made my decision to leave DC because my career was destroyed by the president and the dating was not going well. So I was like, okay, I'm done. But he didn't know that. And I kept that from him until a few days ago. So when he came back from the 3 weeks of ghosting, we chatted back and forth, but he still did not invite me to do anything. It was no effort from his end to connect in person again. And I was not going to, be the one that invited him to do something just because of how many times he like canceled on me. He would disappear, come back a few days again, disappear, come back a few days again. And then we hit the second round of ghosting, which lasted for about a week, just disappeared. And then he came back again, and we went through the same cycle over and over and over again. And then the third round of ghosting came in. This one lasted for about maybe 2 weeks. And at this point, this was just maybe less than a week ago, the third round that he came back. And I'm already on my way to Utah. Like, I'm here now. I've moved back. And I'm in Kansas City on my way here. And he messages me. He says, oh, how's the job search going? And I'm like, like, I want to say some things, but I'm not because I have rules on here. But I'm like, this is the
But
third time that
there's
you've come
there's a
back.
couple of things that happened before. There's a couple of events that happened before you got this message from him. I was with you. I remember that I was with you when that unexpected message came through, like from Esteban. And remember, we were getting your car ready for that trip to Utah. And when you got the message, your face just completely changed. I was there with you, and you went from being relaxed and thinking about the issues that you had to fix with the car to completely spiraling that day. You started like making plans, thinking of all of that what if situations. And at some point, I saw you hesitating about moving and thinking like, oh, what if this works with him? I can stay longer and try. It was kind of like wild to see how much that random text pulled you back in all, like kind of like after all the time that you were waiting for him. That's one of the events I remember that happens before. And also like a week before you moved to Utah, I remember I was scrolling and just checking Tinder. That's probably now our social media. And I was checking Tinder and I saw him on Tinder. And I say before, I was playing this evil friend and I kind of like screenshot and send to you, Jacob, the screenshots. And that got from you like a lot of emotions popping at that time. And I remember you called me immediately and we started like talking about it. And that frustration or that feeling went for like 2 or 3 more days talking about it and just like debriefing, like, let's see, is he asking for a long-term relationship or all the things that he posted there. So I think these two events happened. And I'm saying this because, Jacob, I go back to the point that this guy was playing this game of the prey and the predator. So once he noticed that you were kind of like getting to the commitment part too fast with the questions, he was like, no, I got him. I gotta go. I gotta move forward.
But the
And
funny
I
thing
think that's
is
what
that
happened.
the
And then
31 questions was not even a thing about commitment at all. It was just to get to know him, get to know each other better. I
but
would not be like
from
a,
someone that is not emotionally available,
well, yeah,
from
you're
someone that
right.
is coming from a recent divorce, probably asking that will be too personal because I bet during that 31 questions, some of those questions could be or could get so personal, and probably he was not ready to share that part. And that's why he
Yeah.
wanted to stretch that part of that connection as long as he could.
Well, the reason that it pissed me off
But
so
talk
bad,
about that when I send you the Tinder screenshots.
well, yeah.
Talk about it.
Well, yeah. So the reason it pissed me off so bad, so he would ghost me, and he did 3 rounds of it. I would start to move on from him, and then he'd come back. And then we would keep the same cycle of surface level bullshit that is just, oh, let me text you once a day and string you along and then disappear again. And he did it 3 times, and they were long periods of time. Like it wasn't just, oh, a few days. These were like weeks. And so that would piss me off because it was like he would just come back and it would put me right back into the seat of being, pissed off. And then when I saw him, when you sent me the video of his Tinder profile, it just pissed me off because I'm like, dude, you either just don't like me, which is fine, just tell me, I can deal with that, that's easy, or you're just an attention whore. Like that's just what you want. Like you want a lineup of guys to give you all the attention in the world and you just rotate between us depending on who's giving you the attention. That's probably what happened was there was a list of us that he had and we just all moved up and down on this list and whatever day it was, whoever he felt like he needed to talk to that day is who got the attention. And then once he got it, he moved on to the next one. That's what I think happened. So, yeah, it was frustrating because I really liked
Like
him.
a
I really
dating
did.
market you're describing?
What?
Yeah, I can tell you that, like, but I was thinking that when you were describing that, like, it's now becoming like a dating market instead of like just going around and see who is there and who it gets our attention. But Jacob, I am still interested and how you own this experience. If we're talking about ownership, what is your part of responsibility in this situation? Did you ignore some of the very obvious red flags that were there, and because you were excited about this guy you couldn't see those red flags, or it was just it everything happened so fast?
Well, I did see the red flags, of course, but I ignored them for a little while. And the reason I did was because he did, in fact, go out of the country for a good 3 weeks. So, of course, nothing was going to develop between that time, even though that he ghosted me. So I gave him some, I guess, leeway over that. But it was just hope in me that kept being like, oh, it will turn around. He'll come home from his vacation or whatever, and it will turn around, and it never did. So, but how I stood up to it was few days ago when I was in Kansas City, he reached out after the third round of ghosting again and asked me how my job search was. And I just said, hey, I've moved on past the surface level check-ins. We're not taking this anywhere. You're taking it backwards. This is not taking things slow. Just stuff like that. Just like calling him out for, you know, just leading me along and keeping me an option, even though I haven't seen him since May. That's what's weird to me, is I had not seen him since May, and we are
Well,
in almost August now, and he's still stringing me along.
question, Jacob. I know that you've said that you feel like he's stringing you along. What makes you say that? Like, what makes you think that he's stringing you along? Is it just because he's like texting you and asking you just questions and check-ins, or is he actually telling you, "Oh, I really like you. I want to make something out of this"? Like, what is the conversations that making you feel he's stringing you along?
Well, so once the 31 questions thing kind of fell apart, he was like, let's just take this slow, keep our expectations low. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, that's whatever. But from my perspective, if I'm going to talk to somebody, I don't care if it's like if it's someone that I've seen that I've expressed interest in, if I'm talking to them, that's me showing interest in them. Maybe it wasn't that from his perspective on his end, but I don't know why
So
it,
I think that's a good point because ultimately, right, he told you he wants to set expectations low. So, like, I guess my question is, I go back to just because he's sending you a text doesn't mean he's necessarily like stringing you along. He told you he doesn't really want anything serious.
that's true, but he like knows where I stood is the thing. So it's not like my intentions were not out in the open. They most certainly were, and he knew what they were. I was the one compromising, being like, okay, well, we can go like super duper slow. But at this point, it wasn't even being slow. It was just him popping up in my life randomly when he wanted to, just to like ping
Yeah, I think that's
that memory
fair.
of him, you know? And it pissed me off because I was like, I'm trying to get like away from you. I'm trying to move on from you, dude. And he would just show up over and over and over again. And it would just reel me back
It
in.
probably because, well, it probably was because he wanted to establish maybe more of a friendship or a friendship with benefits type of situation. And he probably thought he was being nice, trying to maintain some type of like connection in the sense of like checking in, saying, "Hey, what's up?" Not making sure that it's totally just for the benefits part. Because I could kind of understand someone who is divorced, you don't know where they're at. He's told you now that he wants to take, we're going too fast to lower expectations, but that doesn't mean complete silence unless you had said, "Hey, you don't want any expectations. I date with expectations. This is not going to work
I
out. Let's go
I
our
did
separate
keep
ways." Was
so I
that ever
did
part of the conversation?
yes. So throughout this whole period, I kept
Okay.
telling him, you know where I stand with having intention behind things. He knew. Like that was the conversations that we had that would be once a day. He knew
But
where I stood on this whole thing.
were you as clear as to say, I think we should separate we should cease talking since our intentions are different.
Well, that's what I did a few days ago. So it didn't matter at this point anyway, because I was moving away.
Okay.
But he didn't know that. I wanted to see what he
Yeah.
would say without the knowledge of me moving. And so I just told him a few days ago, I said, you know how I feel about having intention behind things, and there's no intention behind this from your end. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry.
And I think
You
that
deserve
message was
better
like,
than that. I'm sorry for treating you this way. So he did apologize for it. He said, how about we just be friends? And I'm like, that's fine. Like, but we'll probably never talk again, which is completely fine. So
and I think Jacob, that message was like like a nice closing for you, like a act of self advocate and just you are moving forward and you are ready to go next. But what is next for you, Jacob, when it comes to the dating situation? What is next in the world of romance for you? Are you diving back into Hinge, or are you taking a little break
Well,
to, like, as people say, heal and glow up? Like, is that something that you are interested, or what is the thing
well,
now?
thank God we're out of the cesspool dating scene that is known in DC. Thank God. When I thought I moved to DC from Utah, I thought I was escaping a problem because dating in Utah was an issue too. But DC is particularly bad. It's way worse, and I'm actually excited to be back in Utah to start dating again here because it's so much easier and so much better. Everyone in DC can go to hell. Like, honestly, like all the gay guys
I heard
there,
that you
I
are so
am
ready to be
so
the
done. Yeah. So have fun with your open
Are you so ready to be
relationships.
the next hot item there?
Of course, I'm going to be. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't expect anything less.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Okay.
Jacob, I have one piece of advice for I have one piece of advice for people or guys like Esteban out there. So don't play with other people's feelings. They are irreplaceable. Be transparent from the beginning because people aren't recyclable and their feelings are real. I would like just to say that out there and just put it there.
Right. And I would also like to say right before we end, you were like shocked that he was treating me this way. And it was awesome because you're like, what the hell? Like, Esteban, you have something great standing in front of you and you're screwing it up, which is 100% true. Well,
And that is true.
we're,
We all can see that.
yeah. Well, we're going to get kicked out, so I'm going to close it down. For our listeners, as always, make sure you subscribe and save. We're streaming anywhere you can get your podcasts. Make sure you rate us because it helps us with the algorithms. And also follow us on social media. It's Romance Unraveled on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next time.